Yeah, so I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. We were what's called po, not poor, because we couldn't afford the O and the R. And so when you're po, you don't really know that you're po. Now that I look back, there were a lot of things that I thought was just normal because that was my context, but it was not normal. A lot of the substance abuse that I saw, a lot of the chaos, the confusion, the violence. But I mean, I still had a happy childhood. I mean, that's all that I really knew. You know, we never attended like a Sunday service. We never prayed together. We never ate dinner together. So I would say for me at an early age, my religion was football. So my mom came to me and said, this is what Coach said. Coach said, if you work hard, you could get a scholarship. And I was like, what kind of ship is that? And so that kind of put like a little seed in my heart. Get to BYU. I'm a freshman. It's a whole new culture. It took me a whole semester to kind of figure out academically, to figure out culturally, even football-wise, what was my space, what was my place. January of my freshman year, I'm walking into the BYU weight room.
I had seen him around, and I thought he was cute and all those things, but I was just focused. I was just doing my thing.
I heard these words, hey, can you give me a spot? And of course, my heart's beating. I'm like, yeah, I'll give you a spot.
And did my lift and finished up and left the weight room. I probably had to go to class or something. I don't know.
And then I thought there was going to be more conversation, but it wasn't. After that, she went on and did her stuff, and I'm like, okay, cool. It's like, she's cute. I mean, she kind of ignored me.
We saw each other again. I mean, it was, I don't know, maybe a week or two later.
All the athletes were playing basketball. And there she was playing basketball. And she was shooting three-point shots. She was down low elbowing like 250-pound dudes. I'm like, I really like her.
In the field house, we went up above where the seats are, and we just sat and talked for a minute, and he asked if I had a boyfriend, and I said, I do.
So I'm like, cool. So I respected that. A little time goes by and I see her in the Smith field house where all the athletes are, and she's walking by. I said, hey, do you still have a boyfriend? She said, no. And I said, yeah. Eventually got drafted, go to the NFL 1993. And in my mind, I'm like, this is it. That first year in the NFL was absolutely, utterly miserable.
I think God set us up because we both thought this was going to be the most amazing, the most fulfilling thing ever. And we were actually really disappointed.
I went from a big fish in a small pond to not even being a fish.
He kind of like set us up so that we would go, wow, there has to be more to life than this.
Everything that we were building our house of life on, this house of sand, he was allowing that sand to begin to erode. Third year, I had a really, really exceptional season. I had a teammate that I recognized pretty quickly in 1993 with the Colts. His name was Steve Grant, but his nickname was the Naked Preacher. And here's why. Every day after practice, he would take a shower and dry off. That's totally normal. But then he'd get his Bible and begin to walk around, not in like a obnoxious or rude way, but he'd walk around with his Bible, towel wrapped around his waist, and he'd ask my teammates, he'd say, do you know Jesus? And in my mind, I'm like, bro, do you know you're half naked? And I turn around and I see 6'2", 240 pounds of dark chocolate, near nakedness coming towards me, white towel and Bible. And I'm like, oh no, here's one of these religious guys. So he taps me on the back and he asked me a question that changed my life. He said this, he said, Rookie D. Gray, do you know Jesus? And for 3 nights, I just cried and I cried because I couldn't get over this. I couldn't get over that Jesus knew everything about me and loved me. My whole life was one long fight to be loved, to have affirmation.
He would come home and say, I spend more time on the field talking about scripture than I am actually talking about plays. And my teammates are looking at me like, bro, like, run the play, you know? And so we knew God was changing our hearts at that point, and we really weren't sure what was next. And so it was really a neat time of just seeking, like, God, what do you have for us? Like, where are you working? How do we join in what you're doing? Like, we know it isn't about us. We know you are doing things. How do we join in that? Like, how can you even use us, right?
And that began this 5-year process of this existential crisis of wanting forgiveness, wanting a father's love, wanting to be able to love my wife, wanting to not be so afraid of not playing football.
He got a phone call from, I think it was a youth pastor in South Carolina, asking him to come speak and basically just share his story. And we were like, okay, we don't really know like how this all works, but sure, we'll go. When he got done speaking that day, and it was, you know, note cards were falling out of his pocket, and he teared up and was stuttering, and the youth pastor said, you better get ready, because God's gonna start using you. And we were like, okay.
Like, I haven't read in the Bible where Jesus is like, hey, I'm not the King of Kings, I'm Burger King, have it your way. No, I read about a King of Kings who said, I'm gonna have an every nation, tribe, and tongue family, that they surround and surrender their life to my grace and mercy, and that they love each other. When they love each other, the world will know that you're my disciples. And so that was like a chapter that's still being written, because to actually lead and serve a church of multiple thousands of people with a staff of nearly 50 requires a different type of faith, a different type of humility, a different type of courage. And so I feel like God is constantly transforming us. But here's the key though. He's transforming us to look more like Jesus, more patient, more kind, more trusting, more loving, more truthful, more faithful.
He's been probably one of the greatest gifts God has given me. And his faithfulness to God, first and foremost, and his ability to see me through the eyes of Christ has strengthened me. It's probably helped form me into the leader that I am today. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself.
If somebody would have told me, hey, Derwin, check this out, bro. You're gonna go to school called BYU, you're gonna meet your dream girl, you're gonna create some humans together, you're gonna have a legendary career, you're gonna play in the NFL. And by the way, you know that whole stuttering thing you used to do? God's gonna remove that. And by the way, even though you didn't grow to church nor read the Bible, you're gonna become a New Testament scholar, and you're gonna write books, and you're gonna preach the gospel in India, in Europe, and other parts of the world. And thousands of people are gonna watch your services online, and you're gonna pastor a big old influential church. I'd have been like, you are not talking about me. And I want everybody to know that Jesus is the kind of king that will turn your tragedies into triumphs.